I called my mom.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
From Purdue University.
Good one for you.
Not the room. The only thing we listened to were the doors. But my roommate that was under high school, the girl who brought Barb over from their art hall to the dorm party. After named after food party.
Okay, we are live streaming now on YouTube. And we are about 3 minutes out, waiting on our instructor, Robbie. Should be here any moment. Hi, Rainey.
Hello, Lisa.
Good to see you.
See you as well. Hi, Ian. I see you too.
Welcome, Shannon. Hi. Hello, Lindsay. Welcome. Hey, we're just waiting on Robbie. He has 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, and then Linda's going to teach class. Oh, she says, no, that's not going to happen, but.
Hello. How you doing?
Hey, John. Okay, Robbie has arrived.
Yes.
So you got 1 minute to this clock. No, thank you.
And we're going to get started. Just a second. And I'd like to welcome everyone to the last class. This is the final class.
Let's see, I need a gold prayer book. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our last class in the module Mind and Its Potential, which is the foundation for all the modules that's to follow. Let's see, do we have any announcements? Okay.
So this is Linda, as Lisa mentioned, this is the last class of Module 1. And so next up is How to Meditate, Module 2, and Steep will be teaching that. Stephanie Smith, she goes by Steep. And that'll start up on Monday, February 10th, and will run for 4 weeks until March 3rd. So we do have a 1-week break between this module and the next one. So don't show up here next week. Nobody will be here. And along those same lines, we have a wonderful visiting teacher coming. Venerable Amy Miller will be here Friday, February 21st through the 23rd. So we'll be offering that in person and on Zoom. So try to make it if you can. There's lots more information on our website.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend the How to Meditate module with Steep Smith. She has a tremendous amount of personal experience, and it's a very practical and down-to-earth class, and she's a wonderful leader. So that's, I'd give that big thumbs up. We'll continue with familiarizing ourselves with the prayers in the Gold Prayer Book. So turn to page 34 and 35, please. Let's see, we talked about taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. We talked about the 4 immeasurable. The 4 immeasurables. And I'm going to skip the 7-limb prayer because that's a little bit more complicated than we have time for tonight, but maybe one of the other course leaders can go back on that one. So we'll skip to the mandala offering. And the word mandala is one you come up across a lot. It's considered to be a perfect environment. Every Buddha is said to have their own mandala, which is the perfect world in which they live because they've completely purified their mind. And in this offering, we are offering our mandala, and that means everything that we think is just great and wonderful in this world we live in. And it's typically done with a hand mudra that some people are familiar with. A lot of people are not familiar with. It takes a little practice, but once you get familiar with it, it's fairly easy. So I'm going to let people try it if you don't know it. Your ring fingers on both hands are pointed straight up together. Okay. Then, let's see, your little fingers are crossed. I don't know if you can see that. And your middle fingers are crossed, okay? So you have ring fingers pointing up, middle and ring fingers crossed. Then you use your index finger to grasp your middle fingers and pull them down. It's hard to talk about. Which finger is that? Is that on my hand? Yeah. And use your thumbs to pull your little fingers down. So you have two fingers pointing up in the middle, the ring fingers, and then all the other fingers are down. If you can't do it right now, don't worry about it. But it's once you get used to it, it feels kind of nice. And this is a representation of Mount Meru in the center, which is one of the centers of the Buddhist cosmology. And then the little fingers and the middle fingers are representing the four continents surrounding Mount Meru. But symbolically, it represents our entire world and everything in it that's nice and wonderful and really great. So we recite that this ground, which means this world, this environment that we're symbolizing with the hand mudra, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, so very sweet smelling, very beautiful, adorned with Mount Meru, four continents, and then we imagine the sun and the moon also. I imagine this as a Buddha field, which means it's not just the ordinary world in which we live, but a perfect field in which a Buddha would live, and offer it. So who are we offering it to? We're offering it to all sentient beings. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. So we're developing what we talked about last week, the perfection of generosity in particular. And of course, it's very hard for us to actually give away everything wonderful in our world. So we're just imagining we're doing it. We're practicing it. So that's what's called the mandala offering, which is really a practice of generosity, and that's typically included in our opening prayers, which we recite to set our motivation. And then we dissolve it, which we turn our hands into ourselves and separate them, and our palms come together. And we recite this little Sanskrit verse at the end, Idam Guru Ratna, Mandalakam Niryatayami. I guess that's Tibetan, yeah, not Sanskrit, excuse me. Okay, so that's just a very brief amount on the mandala offering. And then you'll see people at Kadampa Center who have mandala sets that they set up when they're doing their prayers. And then we have the mandalas, the sand mandalas that the monks construct. So it's a concept you come across all the time, different mandalas for different Buddhas. So back to refuge and bodhicitta. I didn't mention this, but what does the word bodhicitta mean? Anybody know? Anybody want to take a stab at that? But what exactly does that word mean? Does anybody know what those syllables are made up of? Yeah, or great. Bodhi means great or big. Chitta is mind, okay? It's the Tibetan word for mind, what we're studying in this course. That's Sanskrit, excuse me. I'm getting all mixed up. Chitta is Sanskrit. Sem, S-E-M, is the Tibetan word for mind. Okay, so they're really the subject of this course, Sem or Chitta. So bodhicitta means the great mind, which is the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay? So let's recite refuge and bodhicitta together 3 times in English, then the 4 immeasurables, then the short mandala offering, and then we'll do our first meditation. And it's said that reciting the prayers is like tilling the field in which we cast our seed. Until the field has been tilled, the soil is just too hard and not hospitable to the seeds. In the same way, our mind is busy and frazzled at the end of the day, and it's not really in a good state for meditation. So we recite the prayers first to prepare our mind for the meditation to follow. And as I said last time, we can think of these prayers really as aspirations. Okay, they're things that we aspire to develop in our own mind. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. And now we'll recite the four immeasurables, the four immeasurably great wishes or aspirations, and we'll pause a little bit after each one and just think about what it means. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And now the mandala offering with the hand mudra if we're familiar with it, but that's not required, certainly. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. So we'll begin our first meditation of the evening. Check your posture. I think everybody's becoming familiar with it. Back a little bit straighter than you normally sit. Head maybe just a couple degrees in front of the vertical. Eyes either lightly closed or open just slightly so a little bit of light comes in. If you tend to nod off or get sleepy during the meditation, it's said that letting a little bit of light in is beneficial. Mouth lightly closed, tongue on the hard palate behind our upper teeth. Shoulders relaxed and down and a little bit back, so our chest is open. That's said to open the energy channels that flow in our body in front of the spinal column. Our upper arms are away from our torso. Hands you can place right on left with thumbs touching, or on your knees, or in whatever position you find comfortable. If you're sitting on a cushion, you're towards the front of the cushion. Legs in a position that you find comfortable and stable. If you're sitting in a chair, your feet are flat on the floor or with a cushion underneath your feet. So just scan your body briefly from head down to toes. Identify any sources of tension or discomfort and address those now. And we begin our meditation with 3 deep breaths, the stomach expanding on the in-breath and contracting on the out-breath. 3 slow, deep breaths like that. And now we allow our breath to return to its normal pattern. And following up on the prayers, we set our motivation. And as much as possible, we generate the bodhicitta, the great mind, the mind that wishes to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. We generate the bodhicitta motivation, that everything we do this evening, the meditation, the discussion, the contemplation, is done for the benefit of everyone. Not just myself, not just the people I like, not just the people I know, but every living being. That probably seems a little bit unnatural, but just think along those lines for a moment. And having set our motivation, we begin the actual meditation, a concentration meditation. We're developing the ability to concentrate, one of the perfections, by placing the mind, the awareness, on the physical sensation of the breath moving in and out through our nostrils. Our mind, which in its ultimate nature is completely clear, reflects the breath, perceives the breath, is aware of the breath from moment to moment to moment. And every time another perception arises, we set that one aside and come back to the breath. And we can end our meditation with a dedication. Acknowledge that we've done something a little out of the ordinary that has made a positive imprint on our mental continuum. And may that positive energy not be lost or dissipated, but may it ripen in a way that benefits all sentient beings. And you may relax your concentration. Okay, last class. I'm going to sum up things a little bit. We're talking about mind, and I just wanted to emphasize, like we've said before, that everything on the Buddhist path is about developing our mind. Sometimes you hear the phrase training your mind, or mind training, like your mind is a poorly behaved little puppy that needs to be trained, which is pretty accurate at the initial stages, but it does become more subtle and complex than that. So we say mind training, which has a little bit of, you kind of think down mind, bad mind. It's really not that. I like the phrase developing our mind, or mind developing more, and that we're developing those positive qualities, which in general tend to come from are represented by wisdom and understanding of reality and compassion, the wish that others be suffering. So everything is about developing our mind. I just want people who are new to things here at Kadampa Center that no matter what we're doing here, what we're putting on, what visiting teachers come, or what prayers we're reciting, or practices we're doing, the basic thing is developing the mind. Everything is done with that goal. So if something confuses you or doesn't make sense, you can just set it aside, but trust that the intention is to develop your mind. And so we think we need to look at all the teachings of the Buddha and everything that the teachers who come here, Geshe Gela, Geshe Sampo, our visiting teachers, Venerable Amy, the question is, how is this about training my mind? And if you do that, I think you can find benefit in almost anything that we put on here. And in that light, I wanted to touch briefly on the concept of the Four Noble Truths. Who's familiar with the Four Noble Truths? Okay, most people have some, that's okay. And I just wanted to make sure that we understand these as dealing with the mind. And the Four Noble Truths are they were early teachings that the Buddha gave after he got up off his cushion under the Bodhi tree and started to teach, which is basically what a Buddha does. A Buddha teaches either by example or through words or through writing. And one of his first teachings was the Four Noble Truths. And it's a very straightforward summary of everything that he taught throughout the rest of his life as a human being here. Everything that the Buddha taught can fit into one of those noble truths at some level or another. So the first noble truth is, anybody know? Suffering, okay, yeah. Yeah, typically it's said as life is suffering. Sometimes you see it on a bumper sticker as life sucks. The word suffering is a translation for dukkha. This is one of the, one of the teachings that really gives Buddhism a reputation for being a grim, negative philosophy or religion. Life is suffering. Another way of translating dukkha is unsatisfactory. Okay, I like that one. Geshe Geluk frequently says life is complications. We want things to be nice and simple, and complications are always coming up. I think unsatisfactory really is the kind of gets at the essence of it, in that there is not quite enough. Pleasurable experiences don't last. Unpleasant experiences arise and persist. Okay, it doesn't mean life is all bad, but it's not quite what we aspire to. And we're talking about life as we know it right now. Okay, so life, but we'll just go with the traditional translation. Life is suffering. Suffering is a mental experience, according to the Buddha. That's what we're talking about, that unsettled, unsatisfied, craving mind. Okay, that is what we're talking about when we're talking about suffering. We're not talking about physical pain, physical discomfort, lack of shelter. Okay, those are physical experiences, and it's said that a Buddha can actually experience those and not suffer. Not in a kind of phony sort of way, you know, like sitting there in the dentist chair while he's drilling on your teeth and telling yourself, oh, this isn't suffering, this is wonderful. No, a Buddha apparently can truly experience those with no mental agitation, no sense of, I want things to be other than they are. The Buddha completely accepts any experience, and we're told it's blissful, okay? For us, with our undeveloped minds, they're painful. And then on top of that, we add the mental quality of dissatisfaction. I want this to go away. I want more of that. I want less of that. I want things to be different than they are. So when we say life is suffering, we're talking about a mental phenomena. It occurs in that non-physical aspect of our being that is the mind, citta or sem. Okay, so that's the first noble truth. And the Buddha is saying that's the way things are, okay? If you're honest with yourself and look at your experience. The second noble truth is, anybody know? There is a cause of suffering, okay? So it's not just random, okay? It's not something that just happens to us, okay, out of the blue. There is a cause. And what's the cause of suffering? Why do we have this mental phenomena of being unsatisfied, of being dissatisfied, of wanting things differently? What are the causes? They actually typically list two. That's a subcategory of what I'm getting at. That's another, that's in the, yeah, that's in the, okay. There are two. Yeah, okay. Karma and delusions or mental afflictions. And the mental afflictions are attachment, anger, ignorance, okay? And if we think about it, they're really the same thing almost, it seems to me. Karma is the influence of past actions of body, speech, and mind that have made an imprint on our mental continuum, okay? The delusions are those habitual ways of acting out of craving or attachment, wanting more, anger, wanting to harm or push away, and ignorance, which is the ultimate delusion of not seeing things as they are. Okay, so our suffering, our sense of being unsatisfied, the complications that we don't want in our life are the result, are caused by past actions and the delusions that those past actions have created on our mind stream. Okay, again, they're not random, okay? They're not caused by an exterior force, such as an all-powerful God. They are completely, 100% a product of our own mind. The most awful things that happen to us are a result of the karmic imprints on our mind stream. That is why we experience them. And that's not the subject of this class, and that sounds very heavy, but it's saying we create our experience ultimately. Everything we experience is a result of our mind, not our parents, not the environment in which we were born, not the city that we live in, not how good a job we have. Everything is the result of our mind, okay? And every bit of suffering or dissatisfaction or complications we experience is a mental experience. This is happening in the mind, okay? So we're talking about life is suffering. There's a cause for our suffering. Again, we're talking about in the mind. The third noble truth is, anybody know what the third noble truth is? This is where it gets nice and happy. Okay, we've had two, we're bummed out now. The Buddha says, wait, okay, the story's not over. Yeah. Yeah, the cessation of suffering. There is an end to suffering. And the technical word that John brought up is cessation. When we talk about that in Buddhism, we use that word to mean something comes to an end and it never occurs again. It's one of the few things that the Buddha says was permanent, in that when you achieve a cessation of suffering, you will never suffer again. So he's saying it is possible for each of us to train our mind, develop our mind, so that there is never, ever any suffering, any dissatisfaction, any complications. Those are permanently eliminated from our mental continuum. It's not that we just get a little bit happier or a little bit more able to cope or deal with things better. We can completely eliminate all suffering from our mind stream, okay? Our external experience may not change at all, okay? May have the same body, we may have the same job, we may drive in the same traffic to work every morning, but it is possible to have completely eliminated suffering from our mind stream, so that never occurs again, okay? That's the third one. And the fourth noble truth is, or just the path, the eightfold, saying there is a path to achieve this, okay? And that's frequently described as the eightfold path, which I'm not going to describe because I'd get it wrong, I'm sure, but it's mainly not hurting others, okay? That's the most important part of the path, ethical behavior. But it's the path. That means there is a path of training your mind by following the teachings of the Buddha, if you find that they speak to you. I'm sure there are other paths, but it's a gradual process of training your mind, i.e., that is, it doesn't come from someone outside you. Okay, it's not like you're tapped on the head with a magic wand or a God figure saves you. It comes from your own work, developing your mind. Okay, there's a path to the complete cessation of suffering. So all of this, from the pervasiveness of suffering to the complete cessation of suffering, is occurring in the mind. It's not external. It's not someone else doing it for us. Okay, others can teach us and show us examples, but it is up to ourselves to do it with our mind stream, in our mind stream. That's the only way to achieve the cessation of suffering. Now, there's no reason that we have to, according to the Buddha. If we're completely satisfied with the way we're living our existence now, that's fine, but he's saying, if you are not, then follow the path. Develop your mind, eliminate the negative qualities, the delusions, and they can be 100% eliminated, according to the Buddha, so that you never have a thought of craving. You never have an angry thought. You never have an ignorant thought, i.e. one that misperceives reality. Those are eliminated completely. And every thought that arises is wisdom and compassion. And that's what the path is about, okay? And it's all in the mind. That's why I wanted to bring this up, okay? Doesn't come from traveling to Tibet and making offerings. It doesn't come from doing prostrations. It doesn't come from reciting prayers. Unless those can help, they can have an effect on your mind, and that's why we're doing them. But those are not the end of the path in and of themselves. The path is, what effect do practices like that have on your mind stream? So that's where it's all about, okay? Any questions or comments? Yeah, the causes of suffering, okay. The first is karma, okay, which is the imprint of past actions of body, speech, and mind on our mind stream, okay. The second is referred to as delusions or afflictions, okay, and there are lots of them, but we tend to group them into three big ones. The first being craving or attachment, wanting, okay, grasping, I want more of this. The second is anger, which means wanting to harm or wanting to push away. And the third is ignorance, which is really often referred to as the root delusion. But those are the causes of all our suffering. It's not because we had a mean teacher at school. It's not because our parents weren't nice to us. It's because we have a mind that's that's under the power almost, that's forced to, that is just forced to see things in a certain way by karma and delusions. Okay? Any other questions or
If
comments?
anyone on Zoom has a question, you may unmute or just put your question in the chat.
So would a Buddha recognize suffering, or would they have not recognize it but experience it, or experience it and not recognize it?
What, say it again.
So a Buddha,
Yes.
would they recognize suffering when it's occurring and not experience it?
Mm-hmm.
Or would they experience
It would not occur
and
in a
not-
Buddha's mind stream. They would remember it, though, and they would recognize it in others, okay?
yeah,
But
so
a
they would
Buddha would not
recognize.
forget that all the countless previous lifetimes they had lived through, okay? It's not like the Buddha's mind turns into a blank. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Does that answer? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got a comment here?
Off topic, but to earlier when we were doing the mandala offering.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are aware, but the Metropolitan is having a mandala whole art exhibit. So if you're in New York,
Oh.
you should go to the Metropolitan and
Oh,
see
okay.
it, or you can go online, because I hear you guys say the word a lot, and I know there was a sand mandala here, but I could never really imagine
Yeah.
what you were talking about.
Uh-huh.
So it was really cool to just go and see and read and
Oh.
all that fun stuff. So very random, sorry. But
Have you been to see it?
yes,
Oh,
I went
okay.
just a few weeks ago.
Were
so.
there lines to get in? Or?
No.
Okay.
I'm
I mean, it's so big. Okay.
disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. A mandala, to go back to, is the perfect environment that a Buddha's mind creates. Okay. And so even though all Buddhas are enlightened, they're different. So they're going to have different mandalas that they experience. And that's why you see, do we have a picture of any mandalas up here? Yeah. Okay. And the sand mandalas and the mandalas that we make are crude representations of a Buddha's mandala, okay? But again, it's the perfect environment that a Buddha creates for him to experience, he or she to experience. Yeah, so there are lots of different mandalas in there. Very elaborate, but thank you, yeah. So if anybody's in New York. Do you know how long that runs? Any idea? Okay, you can look it up online. Yeah, okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I wanted to do two definitions of mind. We've talked a lot about it, and I don't think we talked about its characteristics. It's non-physical, it's without beginning or without end. It's in the nature of clear light, and its function is to perceive or be aware. So I'm going to give two definitions of mind now that we've talked around it. The first one's kind of wordy, but I think it has, I think you'll be able to get something out of it. Okay, saying this is from Alex Berzin, who is a leading student of Tibetan Buddhism and a translator, and he's been to Kadampa several times in the past. He has a website called, just look up Alex Berzin Archives, Berzin, and there's something on almost every topic on there. It's a real treasure trove, and he's a little bit of an iconoclast in that he always wants to define things a little bit differently than other Western teachers have, but he's always thought-provoking. And according to him, mind is the cognitive activity. So this is an important question. He doesn't say it's a thing. He says it's an activity. It's not, we know it's not solid, but it's not an object or a thing. It's an activity. And I think that's very interesting. The cognitive activity of merely giving rise to an appearance of something knowable, okay? And cognitively engaging with it, okay? The cognitive activity of merely, the word merely, you hear a lot of teachers use that. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the head of the FPMT who died fairly recently, was always using the word merely, which means no more than. There's nothing extraneous, okay? The cognitive activity of merely giving rise to an appearance, which means an appearance. This is the mere reflecting something. It merely reflects, it merely gives rise to an appearance of something knowable, okay, of a phenomena, of an object, and cognitively engaging with it. Now, what that engaging is a topic for tremendous debate in Tibetan Buddhism. What actually is the nature of the interaction between the mind and the knowable object that it perceives? Do they become one? Do they have the same karmic seed? Do they affect each other? And we're not getting into that, okay? I'm just saying there's a lot of philosophizing that goes into that simple phrase. Let me just read it one more time. The cognitive, I think by cognitive he means non-physical, the cognitive activity of merely giving rise to an appearance of something knowable and cognitively engaging with it. And that's what the mind is, according to Alex. I'm sure he got this from his teachers. He didn't just make this up, but these were the best English words that he could come up to translate what he had been taught. He's very precise about passing on what he's been taught. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about mind. Yeah, any comments on that, John? Hold on, wait a minute for the... Yeah.
I'm wondering if that applies to the
I would think that's a description of the mind of a Buddha, in that, again, the mind of the ultimate nature of all consciousnesses is clarity or emptiness, okay? And appearances are arising there. The difference is the Buddha's appearances are, what arises in the mind of a Buddha is 100% accurate. And ours is pretty much 99% inaccurate. Okay, the Buddha is seeing things the way they really are. You know, our mirror is dirty and warped. It's like a funhouse mirror. You know, the Buddha's mind is a perfect mirror. That would be my guess. I mean, when we start talking about a Buddha, you know, I'm way out of my depth here as what a Buddha's mind is really like. Any other comments on that? Okay, the second definition I'm going to give is, this is the textbook definition of mind in Tibetan Buddhism. It's 4 words long, okay, so it's very different from the first one. Does anybody know what it is? No, anybody want to make one up on their own, a 4-word definition of mind? See if you can come up with one. Close, yeah, that's okay, and that's good, yeah. You know, like, yeah. Okay, I'll give it to you. First, mere clarity and awareness. Okay, mere meaning nothing more than, nothing else. And Tibetan Buddhism loves to define things by saying, it's not this, it's not that, it's not that, it's what's left over when you get rid of those. Okay? So the mind is not brain, it's not personality, it's not who we think we are, it's mere clarity and awareness. That's all. Nothing more than that. And again, with awareness, we have this idea of the mind being an activity, an experience, something that's continually happening, as opposed to being a thing. Interesting way to think about it. It's a non-physical activity or action, okay? It's not a thing. Mere clarity and awareness. If we look at our mind, we'll see that ultimately there is nothing else there, okay? The ultimate nature of the mind. Certainly there are thoughts and their contents and memories and all of that. Those are just the activity of awareness, perceiving those one after another without stop. Okay? I think that's really great, actually. You could talk for a whole week on that. Mere, nothing more, nothing added to, nothing adventitious, only clarity and awareness. That's what we're talking about when we talk about mind. Okay? One last meditation, and then we'll be through with our module. Posture. Motivation. Mind on the breath, the physical breath. Mind aware of breath. And according to the Buddha, the mind is mere clarity and awareness. Just think in a very concentrated way about those words. What do they mean to you? Mere clarity, awareness. And you can do a brief dedication for everything we've done together over the past month. And it's always said to be very important to rejoice, to really feel joyful about having made an effort. And you can relax your concentration. And again, I want to put it in a big plug for Steep's class. It's a really good one. And thank you everyone in person and online for attending. I'd like to thank Lisa and Linda for managing the class, and Spinmeister Chris for playing the tunes back there. And hope to see everybody around again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Thanks, Robbie.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Good night. Thank you.
Yeah, that was, I love this class.